Ever wonder how property gets split up in an Arizona divorce?
It's something else, isn't it?
Yeah, you hear about community property, and it seems simple at first, but...
But then you get down to the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. So we're doing a deep dive on that.
Should be interesting.
We're checking out some insights from Singular Law Group, real experts on this stuff.
They really know their stuff.
Get ready for some surprises.
Oh, Arizona system.
Yeah.
Definitely keeps you on your toes. It's community property, sure, but...
It's not always 50-50, is it?
Not always, no, sir.
So the article we've got here, it uses this phrase, fairly and not necessarily equally.
Fairly. That's the key word.
Like Arizona wants to do what's right, not just follow some rigid rule book.
Exactly.
So what could make things split unevenly?
Let me give you a scenario. Let's say one spouse is, well, a bit of a gambler, blowing through shared money.
Ouch.
Right. Draining accounts, that sort of thing. Arizona law calls that reckless waste.
Reckless waste.
A judge could say, hey, that's not cool, and give more assets to the spouse who wasn't,
Throwing money around?
Exactly.
That makes sense. You shouldn't be penalized for your ex's mistakes.
Right.
But what about stuff you bring into a marriage? Like my prized vinyl collection.
Now you're talking about
That's got to be off limits, right?
separate property. You got it. Think of it like moving in with a roommate.
Mm-hmm.
Your roommate doesn't own half your stuff just because you're sharing space.
Exactly. My signed first edition of Neuromancer is staying mine.
There you go. Separate property is like that.
Yeah.
Things you had before the marriage, inheritances, gifts, just for you.
So even if, say, my Aunt Susan gives me a Picasso while I'm married.
A Picasso, huh?
Nice.
As long as it was just for you, not a joint gift.
It's mine.
Yours to keep. People think anything you get during marriage is up for grabs, but that's not how it works.
Good to know. My aunt will be happy. Okay, so separate versus marital property. Got it. But then, I saw this word. Commingling.
Yes. Commingling. Not as fun as it sounds.
Sounds like something I'd do with a smoothie, honestly. What's the legal version?
Basically, when your separate stuff and your marital stuff get all mixed up.
Like, if I inherit some money, then put it in the bank account I share with my spouse.
That's a classic example. Hard to tell what's what then.
The inherited money loses its special status.
It's like it's been blended into the marriage.
Speaking of blending, the article mentioned retirement accounts.
Oh, yeah. Those are tricky.
Those are pretty important these days.
A retirement account, you see, it can have both separate and marital parts.
Both.
Say you were saving in your 401k before you even met your spouse.
Okay.
Those contributions, the ones from before you were married,
Yeah.
separate property.
But anything added in during the marriage?
That becomes marital property. Ripe for division, as they say.
Whoa. So much complexity hiding in something that seems simple at first glance. Makes you think about those prenuptial agreements,
Prenuptial agreements.
just to lay out all the what-ifs in advance.
Yeah, not a bad idea, though they get a bad rap sometimes. But, look, even without a prenup,
Okay.
couples still have options. It's not like the court just swoops in and dictates everything.
So it's not like, here, judge, you decide my financial fate.
Not at all. This is where settlement agreements come in.
Settlement agreements.
You and your ex, you can hash things out yourselves,
Mhm.
or
Okay.
work with a mediator, someone neutral.
So it's better to cooperate on splitting up the furniture rather than have the landlord just, I don't know, pick what goes where?
That's the spirit. Settlement agreements, they let you get specific.
Oh.
Our article here, it even lists ways to do it. You can assign items, one person buys the other out. You can even sell stuff off and just split the cash.
Way more flexibility than I realized, which makes sense because every couple is different, right?
Absolutely.
But speaking of different, the article mentioned co-earning property after a divorce.
Now, that is interesting, isn't it? Shows how there's no one right answer. Co-ownership after divorce, though, you really got to think that one through.
Wouldn't be right for everyone, I'm guessing?
Definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
But it can have its uses, like, say, with an investment property. Keeping it joint might make financial sense.
So not tied together romantically, but still financially linked.
Yeah.
Okay, but we've been talking about assets, the good stuff. What about debts?
Ah, yes.
Debts, credit cards, loans, all that. Got to be part of the equation too, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Debt division, just as important and often more complicated than the assets themselves.
Oh, no.
Like figuring out who pays for what after a big group dinner, except the stakes are way higher than the appetizer.
Yikes. Don't remind me. I hate splitting bills.
And here's the kicker. Even if you agree you take this debt, That doesn't mean the original creditor is bound by that.
Wait, really?
Your agreement is between you two.
So even if my ex is supposed to handle our credit card debt, but doesn't, they can still come after me.
I'm afraid so. They can go after either of you for the full amount. That's why it's crucial, too.
Okay.
Try to get your name off those joint accounts ASAP, especially if you're worried about your ex's, shall we say, financial reliability.
This is intense. I'm learning so much. Okay, so let's say you've split the stuff, dealt with the debts, maybe cried a little. It's not actually over then, is it? The article said something about court approval.
Ah, yes. The court still has a role.
You don't just shake hands and walk away.
You can try, but even with an agreement all signed, a judge can step in. They can change it, even reject it entirely if it seems unfair to one side.
Like a referee checking the game footage to make sure nobody cheated.
That's a great way to put it. A safeguard against one spouse getting a raw deal.
It makes sense. Fairness for all. Which, I mean, that's the whole point, right? Making sure it's equitable.
Exactly.
But man, after all this talk about lawyers and judges and splitting everything up, kind of a downer, you know?
It's understandable to feel that way. Divorce is tough emotionally, and then the financial stuff piles on.
For sure.
But remember, this whole system, the community property, the focus on fairness, it's there to help. Trying to make things as equitable as possible.
Right. It's like, even if the game's no fun, at least there are rules, so everyone knows what's what.
Precisely. Structure can actually make it less stressful, not more. Knowing what to expect.
That's a good point. When everything's uncertain, some predictability helps. Speaking of which, the article, it ends with some really good advice. When in doubt, call an expert.
Absolutely. Can't emphasize that enough.
Like, actually pick up the phone, talk to a lawyer.
Whether you're just starting to think about things or you're, knee-deep in it already.
Yeah.
Early legal advice can prevent so many headaches later. Heartbreak, too. It's about knowing your rights, your options, making smart decisions for your future.
So there you have it, folks. Permission to call a lawyer. Tell them the deep dive sent you.
Yeah.
But seriously, if our listeners took away one big thing from all this Arizona property stuff, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I guess it'd be this. The law gives you the outline, but every divorce, it's its own story.
Right.
How property gets split, it depends on so much. Your specific situation, the kinds of assets you have, even how you both act during the process.
So it's understanding the big picture, but then getting into the details with a good lawyer by your side.
Exactly.
So this has me thinking about my own stuff now. Might need to make a call myself, just in case.
Never hurts to be prepared.
That's it for today's deep dive into the wild world of Arizona community property. Hope you found it useful, maybe even a little empowering. Until next time, keep those legal questions coming.